Tim, thanks very much for speaking to us again, and now particularly we're talking about multicultural ministry. Just how multicultural is your patch?
Very multicultural, incredibly multicultural, Auburn. I think it's probably one of the most multicultural parts of Sydney, and Sydney itself is incredibly multicultural. So we really are just very, very diverse. Sometimes people ask me about learning a language here, if I was to learn a particular language so as to reach a particular group, but we're just so diverse I wouldn't know which one to choose. There are people from over 100 different nationalities speaking, I think, over 80 different languages here in Auburn, and quite a large representation of a lot of those different groups either. It's not just ones or twos. So we're incredibly diverse here in Auburn. Diverse in every way, in terms of the whole patch that I'm responsible for as well. We're not just diverse ethnically, but in terms of socioeconomic status, wealth and so on, education, levels of English, church backgrounds, religious affiliation, very, very diverse.
Now, you'll forgive me for saying so, but you're pretty white. Can a white guy lead a multicultural church?
It's a really great question. And it was my question before I came here. It was my question to the person, Bruce Hall, who was leading the ministry, who's still a part of the ministry. And I've been blessed to work alongside Bruce here. But that was my question to him before I came. I said, should I even think about coming to a place like this as a white guy, given that I'm so different to pretty much everybody in Auburn? And I think it's a great question. Bruce was really encouraging at the time. He said it doesn't matter at all, and I'd agree with that now. Having been here 3.5 years, I would agree with that, and that's what I would say to somebody else considering doing a ministry in a place like this, for a few reasons. The big one is that love is the thing that covers a multitude of sins. I mean, love is what we need in any sort of ministry, and if we love the people that we're trying to reach and the people in our churches, they will hear that language. They'll understand that. And I really believe that's the case. It really doesn't matter what colour we are, and it doesn't matter that we're not the same as the people that we're trying to reach. In fact, when we're different, I think that's quite powerful. It says to people, I guess in my particular context, why would a white guy move into a place like this and try to befriend us and try to get to know us and take us seriously as people when he's so different? And well, love is the reason, and it's the gospel that drives us to make loving decisions like that. So that is actually incredibly powerful. I think actually the difference is a powerful gospel statement in and of itself when it's understood. So no, being white hasn't been a problem. If anything, it's been the opposite. I do quite a bit of door knocking in Auburn with people on my ministry team, and again, you might ask the same question, how does that go as a white guy meeting, Afghan asylum seekers in Auburn? But they're very touched often. They're very touched just at the doorway. Why would a white guy be interested in me and love me and want to listen to my story? And as they discover that it's because of the gospel, it's because we've been touched by the love of Jesus, that's very powerful. So has it hindered the ministry? Has it been a detriment? No, the opposite is what I would say. There's a couple of other reasons as well why I think it's not a problem at all. One of the really exciting things about multicultural ministry in Auburn and in Sydney is that people come here wanting to learn English. People come here, in a sense, moving towards Australian culture, whatever that is, but at least part of that is English speaking. So I guess I'm in that situation, which is a little bit different to most missionaries, where the people who are here, who are from many different language groups and many different backgrounds, are wanting to move towards me culturally, that is to my language, and they're wanting to get to know Australia and want to get to know my stories and my history. So all of that helps. All of that opens up gospel opportunities. So no, it hasn't hindered the ministry, and I'd encourage other white people to move into places like Auburn.
A multicultural ministry is a very important thing. There are a lot of people in the Christian church who want to be doing it in Australia. What would you warn people about?
I think there's a number of challenges. The big one's language. That's the big challenge. We have many people here in our church at all different levels of English language ability, all of them learning, all of them developing, as am I. I mean, all sort of moving ahead, but that's a great challenge, just the communication of the Word of God. And that's what builds the church. That's, the gospel is a word, it's a message that needs to be communicated and clearly understood so as to be believed. So, as evangelicals, the centrality of word ministry is something that we believe and base our whole ministry on. So clear communication is so important and so challenging. That's the biggest challenge I think that I face in this particular context. It's trying to clearly explain the scriptures to people with a whole range of English abilities. And I want to do that for people with very, very strong English and people who know their Bibles very well, but I also want to communicate clearly to the person next to them who may have next to no English. Now, obviously at one level that's impossible, but I'm doing the best that I can, and there's a few things that we're trying so as to help clear communication of the gospel. But that's, I think, the biggest challenge, the communication of the Word of God in a context where people are at all different levels of English ability. I guess another great challenge is just the challenges of a diverse group of people with many, many different cultural and church backgrounds. I can't have a targeted ministry here. I can't focus on one particular ethnic group. Again, I'm unlike a missionary who moves to a particular country and gets to know a particular culture and a language and so on, and seeks to get into that worldview and understand that people group. We're different here, we're diverse. I need to listen to a whole group of different people. I need to understand a whole lot of different cultures and understand them to the best of my ability so as to communicate the gospel. Again, that's very challenging, and yeah, it continues to be challenging. I don't have an easy answer for it, except to say again, loving people and patiently listening to them and getting to know them like we would do in any ministry, I think is the answer. It's just long-term, loving people work with the Bible open and lots of prayer and learning as we go. So no silver bullet, nothing easy, but it's a great joy amidst all of those challenges.
And of course, one of those challenges would have to be team leading.
Yes.
How did it affect your team leading as you're hoping to build up the next level of leadership?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, great question. And I think you're right, that is so important, and perhaps the greatest challenge, but the most important part of the ministry, I think, if it's going to grow and if it's going to go ahead, is raising up leadership. And it's raising up local leadership amongst different ethnic groups within our church. So that's a common prayer of mine for harvest workers, to take the gospel into their particular culture. And yes, I think that is critical. That is just so important, and it's what I need to keep doing. And I don't think I've done it well enough, but I'm learning how to do it and wanting to keep going at it. I'm blessed to have a wonderful assistant minister, Hugh Jonas, he's in his second year with us full time. He was a student minister before then, but he's doing wonderful work in this space. So, for example, he's gathered a crop of youth and children's leaders. Pretty much all of them are local young adult people. They're living in Auburn. They've either gone to school in Auburn, or they're now living with their parents, but at university and so on. But these are local Auburn people from different cultures, and Hugh's spending a lot of time with them, training them as youth and children's leaders, reading the Bible with them one-to-one. So just doing great work in raising local leaders who are going to be much better at reaching their particular ethnic community than I'm going to be, or that even Hugh's going to be. So I think that sort of work is just so vital, and it may not bear fruit immediately. I expect that it might be even decades down the track where you see the benefit of that kind of long-term work. But I think again what Hugh's doing there has been wonderful, and is a real wonderful example of the sort of thing that we need to be doing. But as I said, I keep praying for harvest workers from different ethnic groups. I think one little example of where God has answered that prayer is we have a believer from a Muslim background from Afghanistan, powerfully converted. And he will be working with us in a training capacity, but again with a particular heart for his own people, which are the Hazara people from Afghanistan. And again, I'm really excited about that, and I guess I want to see that sort of thing happen over and over again. I want to see more of those stories, because this friend is going to be so good at reaching his own people, the Hazara people from Afghanistan, many of whom live around us here in Auburn. He'll be much better at reaching them than I will be. But if I can pour some time into him and read the Bible with him, and if we can grow together, then I think that's the way forward in a ministry like this. There are particular groups of people around us that are more highly represented. So yes, I mentioned the Hazara people from Afghanistan because they're highly persecuted, and many of them have come here as asylum seekers, and many of them live around us. So yes, we have had outreach ministry to them. We have a couple of them in our church meetings, and then, as I said, a particular leader that I've noticed. And I think, yes, that's the case for a number of groups around us. There are a number of groups, even though Auburn's very diverse, there are some groups that are more highly represented, both in the community and in our church. So yes, I want to look for leaders amongst those groups of people and work closely with them, and then help them to pass on the ministry to their own particular community.
Tim, thanks very much for your time.